Hi there, everyone. Nicholas Dettmann here for the next edition of the Dettmann Media Podcast, going over the latest tips, trends, analysis, and just overall pointers on social media marketing, digital marketing, as well as website design and website analytics. So, really glad you can join me on today's episode. Got a lot of really cool topics to discuss here, so hopefully you've got your pen and paper ready, and we will jump right on into it. And let's just start right there. So, one of the big things that you've certainly heard me talk about over the last several weeks has to do with the continuous surge in online privacy protection, in not just on social media, but on email and overall internet, um, really across the entire industry as we're learning more and more about um, kind of got how different places such as like a Facebook or Google collect that user or consumer data and how they're using it. And there's been a greater, like I said, a greater emphasis from the consumers about having more access to what they know and so forth. So like I said, so with all those recent changes to the online privacy and the mail privacy protection that was launched specifically by Apple in September of last year, is placing a greater emphasis on is going to be needed in terms of engagement on the web and especially within emails. Like I mentioned before, if you're not familiar with Apple's mail privacy protection tool, simply in short, it's a tool that will mask a computer's identifiers such as an IP address and location. The purpose of this is to protect consumers from having their data tracked without their permission or knowledge. And as I've mentioned, it's partly to is they just consumers just don't want that information out there. They kind of feel like it's intrusive and spying, which makes sense from a consumer standpoint. So certainly you want to side with that, but from a marketing standpoint, those are things such as location are very important to making sure you're hitting the right target audience for what you want to do for your advertising campaign. So it's always, as I've noted on my blog and here on this podcast a number of times, it's definitely I wouldn't maybe want to say controversial, but it certainly has pros and cons on both sides of the spectrum. Um, so kind of looking into that, and if you are not real familiar and would like a little bit more information about that, the mail privacy protection by Apple, which came with its iOS 15 update last fall, I do have a link for that on my blog, and that's nicholasdettman.blogspot.com. So how do we adjust to that from an email marketing standpoint? In a recent blog by Litmus entitled Guide to Calls to Actions, or CTAs, in Email Marketing, goes into great detail on how to improve your email marketing. And there were a number of highlights and great talking points from that blog post, but I'll pull a couple of things here from that blog that I think will be of most of use, especially if you're trying to expand your email marketing and trying to get your email to more people, but more importantly, getting more clicks, more lead generation, and so forth. So a couple of the highlights from that blog go specifically into wording or language, and that says a lot. Things like click here or buy now, you would think would seem like great CTAs or call to action language, but unfortunately, according to Litmus, they said it really doesn't give a reader just an incentive for taking action. It doesn't describe the value or what will happen if, in fact, the user does click on the link. So some other examples that um, Litmus unveiled that actually could be more beneficial. And when you're labeling your calls to action within your emails, they suggested things like shop fall collection now, access your account, get 50% off today, start testing, learn more, start planning, show me how, run faster. There's a number of other descriptions that they went into, but really the point of emphasis here is really emphasize what the reader of the email is going to see once they click that link, if you've enticed them enough to want to click, rather than click here, buy now. It's a little more vague, but when you're being a little more specific, like the get 50% off today, or show me how, or shop fall collection now, those are a lot more enticing and a lot more transparent up front about what the reader is going to see if and when he or she or they do click on that link. So really some good advice there by Litmus in terms of how to increase your potential clicks within email. Because if anything, with this change in the mail privacy protection, the biggest change is the open rates are going to be a little more, what's the word I'm looking for here, a little more inflated than what we're used to seeing. But the data of link clicks is hard to inflate, and you'll get a far more accurate representation of the effectiveness of your email. So the next topic I want to go over is a combination report that was released by Hootsuite and We Are Social. Offered insights about social media, search, e-commerce, advertising, and more. And the report, which is 300 pages, consists of data from 230 countries and territories. Thankfully, there is an abbreviated version of the 300-page report, but if you're one of those that has that kind of time to read the 300 pages, more power to you. But for those who just want to get some quick hits about what was discovered in this report, that is also available, and I do have that link available at my blog. So among the topics covered in this report was social media usage, advertising, as well as advertising on TikTok, more specifically, as well as e-commerce. And there's a number of bullet points that came out of this report, and I'll hit on some in the highlights in each of the areas that I felt were the most important and probably the most useful data available. So regarding social media usage, about 4.6 billion people in the world have a social media account, and that's an increase of about 2% from the previous year. Average time spent on social media is right around 2.5 hours, and that is up 2 minutes from the previous year. The average number of social media platforms used by a single user is 7.5. This one kind of surprised me just a little bit. Men outnumber women on social media about 54 to 46%. I would have thought maybe the other way around, but that was not what this study and this report found, so I thought that to be a little interesting. Then the top 5 social media sites are Facebook, YouTube, WhatsApp, Instagram, and WeChat. TikTok at this point rolls in at 6th. I imagine probably if this survey or this report is done next year, I imagine TikTok will probably break into the top 5. In regards to social media advertising, here are a couple of the bullet points that I wanted to pull from that portion of the report. Said social media ads accounted for about 1/3 of the world's total digital advertising spend. And the marketers spent about $23 billion more on social media ads compared to 2020, and that's an increase of just over 17%. Looking at TikTok advertising specifically, more women than men use the app, 57 to 43%. That really wasn't a terrible surprise for me. Your potential ad reach on TikTok is quite high, and it's 884.9 million users, so not too far off from 1 billion users for potential ad reach. And speaking more on the ad reach, looking at those 18 and older, that's the greater population that is reached, and that is nearly 16%. And then lastly, looking at some of the highlights regarding the e-commerce portion of the report, almost 60% of internet users around the world bought something online every week. And then the 5 main channels for product research were search engines, social networks, consumer reviews, brand product websites, and price comparison websites. So a lot of really good data released here in this report, and certainly, like I said, wanted to bring those numbers to your attention as you kind of continue to work through your your social media and overall digital marketing strategies. Like I said, to access the abbreviated version of the report, there's a link on my blog, and if you have, like I said, if you have the time to go through all 300 pages, more power to you. That link is also available on my blog. Last topic I wanted to discuss and bring up to you was another report that came out, and it looks at consumer behavior. Specifically, the report, which was released by brightlocal.com, a company that specializes in local SEO strategies. It was called Local Consumer Review Survey 2022. And in the intro, the report kind of gives an introduction to what we'll see in the report. And it's, quote, every year the Local Consumer Review Survey explores the ways in which consumers use online reviews to choose, trust, and understand businesses offering services in their local area. Continuing from what the report introduction said, since its inception in 2010, the report has aimed to help local businesses, consumers, and marketers understand the impact customer reviews can have on consumers and see which trends change year to year. And finally, while 2020 survey saw a big focus on how COVID impacted consumer behavior towards reading and writing reviews, this time we've asked more questions around fake reviews. This is to see if the reputation of the main review sites is as clean as they like to think it is. So, and that's the end quote. And again, if you would like to see the full report, I have a link to it on my blog at nicholasdettmann.blogspot.com. But I pulled some of the bullet point highlights that I felt were the telling statistics that I wanted to share with you here today. The first one, more consumers are reading online reviews than ever before. In 2021, 77% said they always or regularly read online reviews when browsing for local businesses. That is up from 60% in 2020. 67% consider leaving a review for a positive experience, while 40% will consider leaving a review for a negative experience. I was a little surprised by this number. I thought, if anything, the negative experience would be the higher number. So that was one part of the surprise, and the other part that I was surprised about was just the difference. I would have thought maybe that 67% would have been a little closer to the 40, or the 40 would have been a little higher, because we certainly see it on social media that it's often a lot easier for people to criticize or troll on social media than it is to say something positive. So I was a little surprised by that number, but and it's at least an encouraging number that there are people out there willing to offer positive reviews on a review site or social media or some other platform. 89% of consumers are highly or fairly likely to use a business that responds to all of its online reviews, and I think that's really important. And I've talked about this a number of times. It's all about trying to create that positive customer experience, and you want to do it. You have to do it, because data has certainly shown that if you're more engaging and friendly with consumers, no matter what stage they are in the buyer's journey, whether it's the exploration or ready to purchase or anywhere in between, you want to make sure that they're continuing to have a positive experience. So that's why it's very, very important to do that, and you want to keep doing that. And data is certainly showing that you should keep doing that. 57% say they would be not very or not at all likely to use a business that doesn't respond to reviews at piggybacks, right onto the previous point, that if you don't respond or interact with a review, that's going to be a negative experience and you're going to lose a customer. More consumers use Google to evaluate local businesses than ever before. In 2021, 81% did just that, but the year before that, just 63%. The top sources of fake reviews, according to consumers, are Amazon, Google, and Facebook. So you definitely want to keep an eye on reviews on those platforms. And then lastly, only 7% of consumers say they're not at all suspicious of reviews on Facebook. So a lot of really good information for you about how consumers behave and how they interact in terms of reviews and where they are in their buyer journeys and how they get to the point of deciding if they want to do business with you or not. So that wraps up today's podcast. So I really appreciate your time here today. If you haven't already, please head on over to my blog. Again, that is nicholasdettmann.blogspot.com. Click on that little button that says subscribe, and you'll get updated information, tips, trends, analysis, news stories about the latest in social media, digital marketing, delivered right to your email inbox. And of course, you always be sure to listen to the Dettmann Media Podcast. Appreciate everybody that does listen. And if there's ever any topics that you would like me to discuss, if there's a question that you would like to have answered here on the podcast, by all means, feel free to contact me. And my contact information is also on the blog. So until next time, thanks so much for listening today, and we will talk to you again soon. Have a good day. Bye-bye.